At the beginning of lockdown, my father got sick, or before lockdown, and then my mother got sick. And on the 2nd of April, she was taken to hospital, and we were able to say goodbye to her. And then a few hours later, she passed away on the 7th of April. That was very hard. I'm the one who had to tell my dad and my sister that Mum wasn't here anymore, and my children, and that was probably the worst thing of it all, having to tell family and loved ones that we'd lost someone. The sadness that's been around initially was really hard. And while trying to stay positive and trying to sort out all the sort of business side of things. So with the funeral, I had to be quite business-minded about it. So I made notes. I have a notebook where I wrote down who I spoke to, when I spoke to them, what questions I had asked or what I was going to ask. Simply because I knew my mind wasn't straight, and I'd think of things at 2 a.m. at ridiculous hours. So that was very difficult, trying to balance everything up and making sure that we followed the new legislation, the new rules around COVID for this period. So we could only have 10 people at the funeral. Mum was cremated, so we didn't have the burial, we didn't have all the usual things, but it was Mum's wishes. Her funeral day, we were all had to wear colour. My mum's favourite phrase was, "Oh, you're wearing black again." So weren't allowed to wear black. That was the only rule stipulated about this funeral. So I chose my outfit carefully. I decided on an outfit that should come with me when I had it made, and it was an Indian outfit, a Punjabi suit, which I always felt nice wearing, and Mum liked me in it, so and I think she would have smiled. But everyone made the effort for Mum. It was very short and sweet. It wasn't a full Catholic Mass as we would have normally had. There was no one there apart from us, immediate family, and my mum's younger sister, which was very difficult for everyone concerned because we couldn't hug each other. My dad was devastated that he couldn't hug his grandchildren and comfort them. And it was hard for me to see my dad in that way as well, because it's not something you see every day, a grown man sort of feeling lost, because he's quite an upright sort of chap. He's jovial, funny. But the funeral was quite a poignant time. The day before the funeral was my dad's 80th birthday. Mum had been planning what she wanted to cook, what she wanted to make for him, what she wanted to do for him. And all that was in her head, so we are never going to know. I tried to do what I could, but it wasn't going to be a family thing because everybody was still social distancing and isolating. After the funeral, we had a socially distanced picnic in their garden, and all the grandchildren came over, and we all just sat in the garden, shared pizza, which possibly isn't in the rules, but we did. And that was, I think we needed to have that as a family because it was as close as we were going to get to each other. Grieving Mum, I probably grieved Mum before she passed, when the doctor told her that if she didn't go into hospital, she could die. And I guess that was the first moment I really believed it. Although I'm the one that called the doctor, I guess I didn't really believe it was going to be that final. And I cried, I blubbed. When the ambulance came and took her, none of us were able to go with her. We weren't even allowed to come to the hospital following the ambulance or anything. And that was probably the hardest part of this. So I had to make phone calls, but because I've been staying with Dad, I had to make sure that he was all right with everything I said. Make sure that, so that I remembered what I needed to ask, I would write things down, write down the people I'd spoken to and what they'd said to me, because I had to tell everybody else. And it was difficult. If she died not of COVID, if she died in normal time, I think my grief would have been different, because I might have expected it or not, I don't know. But the fact that we haven't been able to hold each other or touch each other in terms of holding my children's hands. My children are adults, but at the end of the day, they'll always be my children. That's been the hardest part. I haven't been able to cry like I did before Mum went into hospital. So outside of COVID, I think my process would be a lot different. I think why I'm stammering slightly at the moment is because I guess COVID is at the fore of all our thoughts. And we're different people as a result of it. We can't go out, we can't see the people we normally see. When we do see them, we can't hug them or share a cake or whatever. It's just so different now. Talking to people, we're aware that we have to be more careful, whereas outside of COVID, those things don't enter our heads, and being stuck indoors for 5 months had been really hard. I didn't want to go out. I would go to the supermarket late so that I missed all the crowds and everything. I would go when I knew it was going to be the quietest, and I didn't go to the main supermarkets. I was going to the little Aldi or the little Tesco, just the small shops that were very strict on COVID, because I just couldn't face people, couldn't face being around anyone, which that might have been the case if it was outside of COVID times, that I would have just gone to my normal supermarkets or did the shopping the way I've always done. But there's a marked difference in how we go through our lives. After she died, I have had a couple of wobbles. I wouldn't even call it floods of tears, but I haven't really fully let go, I guess. I know she's not coming back, but sometimes you get little things that go wrong or what have you, such as the day my dad burnt the curry and I burnt the rice. And we joked, because that was something Mum used to do. She'd forget she'd left something on, and we call it Mum up to her tricks. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, I don't know, but sometimes we do wonder.